Turn on your inner light show. It's time to stop just surviving, and it's time to begin to thrive. It's time to live happier and healthier. Turn stress into strength. Noted author Debbie Mandel will show you how to move beyond personal doubts and fears and into positive perception to turn on your inner light. Here's your host, Debbie Mandel.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to my show. Our guest expert is Jason Selk, Ph.D., Director of Mental Training for the St. Louis Cardinals, an executive coach who worked with clients like Anheuser-Busch, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Charles Schwab, Wells Fargo, the NFL, just to name a few. And he is the author of Executive Toughness. Put your mind on success, and Jason, show us how. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Debbie. Thanks for having me, and great to be with you.
Now, what's the common denominator between business and athletics?
Well, I think that for sure what you see, especially with the high-level athletes and the high-level business people, is that competitiveness, that desire to improve. And I want to take just a second and talk about that, just that last piece, the desire to improve. People ask me a lot, what's one of the characteristics that you see? And this is one of them, is that no matter how successful these individuals become, there's always a piece of them that wants to continue improving. And it's one thing that people can learn to do, even though it's a little bit abnormal. But Lou Holt said it best. He said, human beings are like trees. Once we stop growing, we start dying.
Well, I always thought trees were both dead and alive at the same time. Everything living has death in it. Cells are dying and new cells are regenerating. And what if you don't know where you're going yet? Maybe we need to sometimes stay put and percolate. How do you feel about that?
I will reject that one with an almighty power. I feel like the idea of being in the holding pattern, I know in my own life it's one of the most uncomfortable places. And so I really encourage people is, instead of percolating and sitting tight, always decide at least the best you can where you think you want to go. Now, you can always change your mind and redirect your course, but instead of being that airplane sitting on the runway with nowhere to go, always have a place you're trying to get to. And again, once you're in the air, once you start moving towards that point you've picked or that direction you're headed in, you can always reset your course. But it's such a good way for people to realize if they're on track or not is by taking action and moving towards something. I think what happens in those holding patterns in the percolation phase, it actually extends the amount of time you're going to sit on that runway.
That's a very interesting point. So you think that percolation could lead to a kind of paralysis or numbness, or would fear get in the way? But let's say I don't know my purpose, and what am I to do?
Well, I think that if you didn't know your purpose, you'd be like so many people out there listening. Most human beings are walking around and don't have a clue of what their purpose is. And listen, it's a really deep question to answer. I know for me, it took me 5 years, literally 5 years to get it right. But one of the things somebody instructed me on a long time ago was, hey, look, do the best you can. Pick the best purpose you can come up with right now. And again, you can change course once you find a better place to go. But having some purpose, even if it's not perfect, is much better than having no purpose at all. And so, an exercise I do when people come into my office, I say, okay, now, I'm about to ask you one of the deepest questions known to humankind. What is your purpose? And I know that it's a really deep question. I know it's going to take a long time before you actually get it right. But what I want to do is in the next 5 minutes, I want you to come up with what you can identify as the best purpose, at least for you right now in this short amount of time. And again, you can confirm or deny as you move forward, but at least have a direction you're going with it.
Have you ever had people come into the office who said, I can't do it? I can't do it. Of course.
And I quote the expectancy theory. That which you focus on expands. So I would simply say to that, if you tell yourself that, if you tell someone else that, you're right. You can't do it, and you won't be able to do it. But here's the really great thing about expectancy theory. It's whatever you focus on expands, not just the negative stuff. So if you start saying things to yourself, like I can do this, or I can improve on this, or I can move forward with this, or I can get started on it, those things will be true as well. You know, whatever you lock into your mind is going to be what your new reality is. And so you want to really choose wisely what you're saying to yourself about yourself, as well as what you're saying to others about yourself.
You don't want to sabotage the self, in other words. Now, what does it mean when you wrote to control greatness? How do you do that?
Well, I think there's a lot of steps, you know, and I think both of my books, that's what I'm trying to do, is help people. You know, my first book was written for the athletes and coaches out there, and I was really trying to give people a comprehensive plan in the sports world to control greatness. The second book, really in the business world. And, you know, I'd like to say that it's just one thing or that one or two things, but I think it's a little bit deeper than that. But this is something I think I learned in my own life. I went from being a complete underachiever, a complete excuse maker, really what I would consider in my own mind really a kind of a bum, you know, a real chump. And I had some people help me, and what I recognized was if you'll just show little improvements every day and just consistently try to just anything to make one step forward, that over time you really can travel a great distance towards controlling that success. And so, you know, I don't want people to think that you have to go from 0 to 100, but you do have to go from 0 to 1, and then to 2, and then to 3, and then to 5, and then to 9, and then eventually get to that place where you're kind of, you know, cooking with gas and using all cylinders. But it doesn't have to be overnight. Just slowly get started with that improvement, and you'll find it's not as bad as it's made out to be, and it's self-reinforcing, because every time you show an improvement, you've got this built-in thing inside of you that you feel good about yourself, and that makes it easier then to continue moving things in the right direction. Starts with step one.
Okay, now, you wrote that getting back to basics leads to excellence. Why would it do that? And I assume that you mean that in athletics as well as in business.
You know, and absolutely I do. And really, I take the fundamental approach to success. And I was just doing a workshop in Columbus, Ohio, with 30 very, very successful financial advisors. And we had this very discussion that over the last 15, 10 years, we've actually complicated.
We're going to go to commercial break, but I'm very curious as to what you told these financial advisors in this difficult time of economic recovery. We will return with Dr. Jason Selk, author of Executive Toughness.
Now you can take Debbie Mandel home with you. Her book, Turn On Your Inner Life, Fitness for Body, Mind, and Soul, will help you decompress with healthy, positive, concrete solutions. Common life challenges are presented so that you can quickly find the help you need. Emotional tips, original meditations, and a fun and easy-to-follow fitness workout for each mindset. This revolutionary new method will help you rewire mind and body to take back your power. Get it on Amazon.
Are you overwhelmed with the burden of taking care of children, parents, or both? Are you taking care of everyone else except yourself? It's time to change your habits and re-energize. Debbie Mandel gives you an innovative and easy-to-follow program for good health and happiness. In her magical new book, Changing Habits, The Caregiver's Total Workout, Debbie Mandel shows you step-by-step how to find the optimal balance between giving and receiving, and guides you to exercise and eat right to take care of yourself. What are you waiting for? Read Changing Habits and start training for your life. Life does not need to be a burden. Get Changing Habits, The Caregiver's Total Workout on Amazon.
Listening to the Turn On Your Inner Life show. I'm your host, Debbie Mandel, and I'm speaking with Dr. Jason Selk, author of Executive Toughness. Okay, Jason, so you were motivating financial advisors. Go ahead.
Right, and so one of the things they were talking about is exactly what you were saying, that it's, especially in these times, it's so easy for us to complicate life. Well, if you boil it down to the fundamentals, it really does become a simplified approach to controlling greatness, And I'll give you an example of sport, and then we'll give one for business. So it's like the basketball team who, if they just realize if they can be better at passing, dribbling, and shooting than the other teams, they greatly increase their chances of success. Instead of focusing on all these new and improved defenses and offensive schemes, just get down to the basics. Be better with the dribbling, passing, and shooting. Same thing in business, And with the FAs, they have fundamentals. The FAs, the fundamentals are making those client contacts. One of the things that's most important is you got to be on the phone to your clients. You got to be talking to them even in tough times. In addition, you got to be prospecting for business. So we talk about what are the fundamentals for that? How many new prospects do you need to be contacting on a daily basis? And then a good old-fashioned fundamental of ritualizing and organizing your day. Coming up with what should I do each day before the day begins, and then doing those things. And I'm a big believer in just come up with your top 3 things, and then at the end of the day, evaluating how you did. Those are fundamentals. We know those things stand the test of time, but we get so distracted with all the urgent things that are out there and all the new and improvements that people are making, we sometimes forget about the fundamentals. And if you just boil things down, generally in any industry, there are those fundamentals that if you become great at, you really do put yourself in a position to be moving ahead of the competition, and it should simplify life, which is great. It's a win-win.
Yeah, I like that. I like what you just said, and it resonates to get back to the ABC of things. It's so important, the way you gave that example. We have all kinds of gadgets and gizmos, and we can do flourishes. Take, I'm a writer, so I could get really fancy and clever, but then I might lose the heart of what I'm saying. So when you really understand the concept, you can render it simply. What gets in the way of success?
Well, I hope we have more than a few hours to answer this one.
Well, be brief.
There are so many distractions. I love this quote by Stephen Covey. He says, "The noise of the urgent creates the illusion of importance." I'm going to say it again. The noise of the urgent creates the illusion of importance. And I think we can all relate to this, that in this day and age, it is so easy to wake up in the morning and then just be swept away with the wind of all those emergencies and those things that have become urgent. And then we forget to put energy into what those fundamentals or those most important activities are. And so, any client I work with, that's always step one, is we got to really figure out where you're trying to go, and then specifically, what does it take on a daily basis to get there? And that's the stuff that you have to prioritize. Get that stuff early in the day completed. And then if there's time for some of these other things, great. If not, at least you can put your head down on the pillow every day knowing that you took care of what you decided was most important in your life. You can't be perfect. You're not going to be great at everything, and there's a disadvantage to that. But what you'll find is you become great at the things that are really most important to you. And
then you build on those strengths, would you say?
Absolutely.
Or do I have to address weaknesses?
I think you have to be aware of your weaknesses, but, I'm just not a big believer in focus on them so much. I think we're so good at focusing on problems and knowing what our weaknesses are, that if you just shift your mind a little bit to be more focused on solutions and your strengths, those weaknesses, they're in there. You're not going to forget about them. But again, highlight what you can do and what you want to do and what it takes to do it, instead of all those reasons why you can't or shouldn't or won't. The more you think about the things you want and what it takes to get there, the more likely it is that you put the action into doing those things that are necessary to actually make it happen.
Now, you put a great value on finding a mental coach. How do I do that?
Okay, and first let me say what a mental coach is, because this is not me promoting prospecting for new business. When I say a mental coach, it's really just pick someone in your life whom you have great respect for, and you don't need to even know this person. I know for me, I had John Wooden serving as a mental coach of mine, and I didn't know him. For 20 years, he was sitting on one of my shoulders, always talking in my ear. You know, whenever I get to those decisions a person makes throughout the day and I was not sure what to do, I'd just say to myself, what would Coach Wooden do here? And it always inspired me to choose the right path. Now, I was fortunate enough to, after 20 years of having him on my shoulder, I actually got to meet him and thank him for all the mental coaching he did for me. But I would just encourage people to choose one person, a person whom you have great respect for, and then carry them around with you. Always have them with you. And when you get to those difficult places of making decisions, just ask the question, what would Coach, you fill in the blank, do in this situation? And then follow their advice. They're usually going to point you in the right direction.
What if you don't know?
Well, you got to know. Expectancy theory again says...
I need the dialogue. That's why I'm asking. Sometimes you really don't know. I mean, isn't that a possibility? Unless you have read everything about your coach or studied tapes or so forth. What if I just choose, it's like choosing a role model and have that role model speak to me, but what if I haven't done my homework about the role model?
Okay, I misunderstood the question. What if you don't know what the coach would do is what, I misunderstood the question. So here's the thing. Typically, when you have someone that you've chosen as your mental coach, you're usually going to choose someone you have great respect for, and you're going to have that respect for them because they usually do make the right decisions. Here's the thing. See, you actually know what you're supposed to do in almost every situation. It just sometimes takes courage to find and answer it correctly. But we typically know, and so really what I've come to realize is it wasn't Coach Wooden teaching me. It was Coach Wooden pushing me to make the decision I already knew I should make.
Well, hold that thought for a moment because my radio engineer is pushing me to commercial break, and I must honor that. And we will return with Dr. Jason Selk, author of Executive Toughness. Dear listeners, I'm excited to tell you about my new book, Addicted to Stress. This is a message you need to hear. Are you addicted to stress? Do you do it all while everyone depends on you? Where's all this pressure coming from? It is coming from inside you. This is why my publisher, John Wiley, asked me to write Addicted to Stress, a woman's 7-step program to reclaim joy and spontaneity in life. This fun-to-read book teaches proven strategies to reclaim your life, silence your inner critic, build a healthy body, and reframe your thoughts to change your life for the better. Dare to be happy without the guilt. Addicted to Stress is easy to get. It's available at Barnes & Noble and other fine bookstores everywhere. You can also buy it at Amazon and other online retailers. We're back with Dr. Jason Selk, author of Executive Toughness. Okay, if I understand you correctly, the mental coach that I really have is my inner voice, my gut feeling, my logical, cognitive thinker, and I'm kind of putting them together. Now, you wrote about the mental workout. What is that?
Well, the mental workout for the business people is a 100-second process where really, again, what you're doing is just mentally preparing for the day. And I'll quickly go through it if we have a second. The first thing I want you to do is take what's called the centering breath. In the centering breath, you breathe in for 6 seconds, you hold for 2, you breathe out for 7. In doing so, you control your heart rate, which gives you a much greater chance that your brain is going to operate at its potential. Second thing, you say to yourself something called an identity statement. An identity statement is just a personal mantra. And it's really kind of focused on what it is that you feel like you have as a strength and what do you want to accomplish in life. For example, you might say, I outwork the competition every day. I'm the most effective performance coach in the country. And then after the identity statement, you're going to do some visualization. I want you to visualize 30 seconds worth of what you want your life to look like in 5 years, who and how you want to be, specific to 3 things. The top 3 priorities in your life. For example, mine are relationship with my wife and kids, my career, and my personal health. So again, that 30 seconds you focus on where do you want life to be in those 3 areas in 5 years. The next 30 seconds of visualization, I want you to focus on what do you need to do in the next 24 hours. What are some of those activities that you really need to make sure happen and happen well so that that dream you have of 5 years down the road actually becomes a reality. And then what I want you to do in step 4, again, just repeat that identity statement to yourself. Take one more centering breath, and that should be a good way to get your day started and have yourself mentally prepared for success.
It sounds really good because I like the breathing that takes you back to your center, eliminates distractions, oxygenates the brain, and then you're really focusing on your goals for the day and how to implement. And inspiration will only go so far if you don't implement. And then I guess at the end of the day, do you recommend taking an inventory?
Oh, absolutely. I call, the way I ask people to do it is what's called a success log. You just ask and answer 3 questions. Number 1, what 3 things did I do well today? And I know how foreign that is for most people. But listen, one of the things we know is giving credit where credit is due is very important for increasing your ability to create success in the future. It's something that's very foreign, but very effective if you can get in the habit of doing it. Second question. What's one thing I want to improve tomorrow? Again, there's that theme of relentlessly improvement, relentlessly improving on a daily basis. What's one thing I want to improve tomorrow? And then question number 3 is, what's one thing I can do differently that can help make the above-mentioned improvements? Just basically asking, okay, well, how are you going to make the improvement? If you'll do that on a daily basis, what happens is it really starts to keep you in line with what your plans are, how are you doing on those plans, and what needs to be improved.
And it also gives you the ability, as you said in the beginning of the interview, to shift. If something's not working, I don't have to wait months before I make a change or take a detour. I can put my ladder against another wall. And I think that gives me the ability to do good housekeeping like the Japanese business model called Kaizen, which is constant improvement, slow and with patience. I think sometimes we're a little too impatient. Now, if we want to learn more about your work, do you have a website, and how can we access you?
Well, thanks for asking, and you can get the books at any of the bookstores or online retailers. They're also on my website. My website is JasonSelk.com. That's S as in Sam, ELK.com. And not only are the books on there, but there's all kinds of free stuff. I really try to load it up with worksheets, so that evaluation form, that success log is on there. There's a number of videos that you can watch. There's a video on the mental workout, all kinds of free stuff. So I really encourage people to check it out and see if there's any benefit that I can be helping people with.
Well, you're very inspirational. You gave us a lot of useful information and a great resource for this time period where we can jumpstart our lives. So thank you so much, Jason, and be well.
Thank you, Debbie.
Affirmation of the week. Instead of healing what is unhealthy, how about boosting what is strong? A new study finds women who spend 4 to 7 hours a day sitting are more likely to show early signs of type 2 diabetes. But researchers have found no such link in men. So I guess men can sit around, but women can't. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics encourages all women to take steps to increase physical activity and decrease their risk of developing diabetes. A national study suggests that a significantly greater number of highly educated women in their late 30s and 40s are deciding to have children. This is a dramatic turnaround from recent history. Lifting less weight more times is just as effective at building muscle as training with heavy weights. This is a surprising finding by McMaster researchers that turns conventional wisdom on its head. The key to muscle gain, say the researchers, is working to the point of fatigue. You think your computer has a lot of memory? Well, if you keep using your computer, maybe you will too. Combining mentally stimulating activities, such as using a computer, with moderate exercise decreases your odds of having memory loss more than computer use or exercise alone, according to the Mayo Clinic. Previous studies have shown that exercising your body and your mind will help your memory, but this new study reports a synergistic interaction between computer activities and moderate exercise in protecting the brain function in people far better, and especially from 70 years of age and up. And while I'm on the subject of exercise, again from McMaster University, here's a new point. Aerobic exercise can precede resistance training exercises on the same day without compromising muscle building, and vice versa. So whatever you feel like doing first, go for it, take a break, fuel your body, eat and burn, so to speak, and then you can try it again. And the American Heart Association claims that a shock from a taser, and we have to, our law enforcement people have to evaluate, that can cause a cardiac arrest by triggering a heart abnormality. We have to think about this. Well, we come to the close of another show. I have an educational website on stress management, totally free. TurnOnYourInnerLight.com. All the radio shows with the guest experts are archived for your listening pleasure. Just tune in on TurnOnYourInnerLight.com and you'll go right into YouTube and enjoy whatever you need. Subscribe to my free newsletter from TurnOnYourInnerLight.com and you'll get the latest radio show, a fresh new article on stress management, all the health tips fully delineated, emailed directly to you.